We're gonna do some editing. Hello, my name is Bonnie and this is my knitting podcast, A Knitter Obsessed. This is my channel where I come to talk about everything knitting going on in my life, all of the new yarn, all of the projects, all of the fun stuff that I am currently obsessed with. And today is going to be a little bit different. So if all goes according to plan, this video should be airing at the same time that I am flying to Seattle to go to Flock Fiber Fest. So this is my very first yarn festival. So Flock Fiber Fest is a yarn festival up in Seattle, Washington. This is the second year that it has been put on. It is hosted by the yarn shop La Mercerie. And everything I saw about Flock from last year, it just seemed like it was so much fun. This year there's even more vendors. I think there's 100 or so vendors, just tons of yarn. Yeah, I'm just excited to meet everybody, see all the people, be around like-minded people who love knitting and fiber arts as much as I do, and it's going to be so much fun. On top of that, I'm meeting my friend Katie up there, and Katie lives in Nevada, so we don't see each other very often, and she also knits, and I just thought it was a great opportunity for us to just meet up and have a good time. And so we're going to be going to the marketplace at Flock on Saturday, but then we're just going to spend the rest of the weekend exploring Seattle and having a good time, and I could not be more excited. So with that being said, what I wanted to do today is go over my plans for Flock. I figured with this much yarn and this many vendors there, it would probably be a good idea to have, an idea of what patterns I'm currently buying yarn for. It'll also hopefully help keep me on a bit of a budget. I'm planning to splurge, don't get me wrong, going all the way up to Washington for this. I'm gonna splurge a little bit, but I don't want to go too crazy. I want to have a bit of a cutoff. And so I picked out a few patterns those are the ones I'm specifically looking for yarn for. And I'm not saying I'm going to buy yarn for all of these patterns necessarily, but they're just going to give me a nice jumping off point. With that being said, there are, when I say I'm not necessarily going to buy yarn for all these patterns, I mean, I really can't buy yarn for all these patterns. It would put me way above my price range, but I wanted to make sure I had enough options so I could maybe buy a couple of sweaters quantities, which is, a bit of a splurge, but I'm really excited for it. So my plan today, I have, I think, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 patterns to go through today of what I'm thinking about buying yarn for. And I just have them all pulled up. I have the Ravelry pages pulled up on my iPad. So if I'm looking down a lot, it's because I'm looking at the specs. But I just wanted to go over them with you, kind of what I'm thinking about buying for them, why I'm picking these patterns to look at. And yeah, I thought that would be a lot of fun. Also, just before we get into it, I will say my one bonus pattern is I do want to buy one skein of just like a really fun sock yarn. So I'm thinking something just really awesome dyed, really fun variegated colorway that I can just use to knit up a pair of vanilla socks is something that is totally going to happen. That is 100% a plan. I think those would be very fun socks and a fun pattern. And it's nice to have, I love variegated yarn, but it is sometimes hard to think about what to do with it in a garment. But for socks, I can just go crazy. So I can find the most fun skein of yarn that I can at this. And just, yeah, that's one. I don't need to show a pattern for that. It's just going to be all about the yarn. I'm very excited for that. Besides the sock yarn, the way that I focused myself on these patterns, and this is true for pretty much all of them, there's one bonus in here I'm going to put in because it would be fun to think about, but we'll get to it. I'll explain when we get there. But I'm going for thinner gauge projects. So I'm going for things that pretty much take fingering or lace weight yarn, and I'm not going above that. And that's just because when we're talking about these hand-dyed yarns, where they are getting a little bit pricier, you do get more yardage out of a fingering or a lace weight yarn. And so you don't have to buy as many skeins. And that's just, what it is. I personally really love knitting with DK and worsted weight yarn. It's, the fact that they're not on here is not a statement of my preference of yarn at all. So just, if you notice a theme, it's there for a reason, and it's there just for cost effectiveness. I just want to get the best bang for my buck. And I feel that the thinner weight yarns are the best way to do that in this sort of situation. So with that being said, the first pattern that I picked out to look for yarn for is the Camelia Cardigan by Minimi Knit Design. Sorry about that. And this is a beautiful cardigan. It's a crew neck cardigan, and it's knit with 2 strands of a fluffy yarn held together to obtain a worsted weight gauge. And I fell in love with this pattern the first time I saw it. You could knit this without it being fluff. I see a few in the projects where it looks like they just held a worsted weight yarn, and it also looks really nice, but I personally would want to do this in a fluffy yarn. And I think this would be the perfect pattern for me to use Sari alpaca for the first time. I've never used it before. I've heard great things, and I do know that a lot of indie dyers really like dyeing Sari alpaca. And so I think that would be just a great thing to look for here and have some fun, you know, squishing some fluffy yarn. I do really like it in the designer sample. She has it in this cream color, and I think it's gorgeous. I'm not sure I'd go with cream necessarily, depending on what yarns are there, but probably something in a bit of a lighter yarn to really show off the lace pattern, and also to sort of play up the fluffy, light vibe that the cardigan has going for it. This cardigan is knit from the bottom up, which the designer explains is because the lace pattern that is all over it just looks prettier from that direction, which is fair. So this pattern comes in 10 sizes, which is great, and it ranges from a 30 to a 66-inch bust size, and those are the actual sizes that is designed to fit, so that takes into account ease and all of that. And I would probably be knitting the size 3, which means I would need about 1,800 yards of Sari alpaca, which is quite a bit. I mean, like, I'd still be having to splurge quite a bit because you're having to hold it double. It's double the yardage, and so it adds up. But I do just think this would be a very special garment that would really showcase any yarn I were to get. So this one's definitely on the top point of the list. I'm really excited about this one. Okay, the next one, and I talked about knitting this pattern way back in my early first podcast, and it never happened for me because I never found the right yarn. And so I'm keeping my eye out. I want to try and find the right yarn. But that would be the Poet by Sari Nordlund. I love this top. It's stunning. So it's got a lace panel on the front and the back, and then these plain, just slim fitting stockinette sleeves. The whole thing is fairly fitted to the body. It has a little bit of positive ease, but not a ton. And I just think it looks so stunning, so elegant. I absolutely love this pattern, and it has just the littlest bit of like a boat neck kind of vibe across the top, and honestly just absolutely stunning. The gauge on this is what always got me. So the gauge is 22 stitches in stockinette, and she calls for a fingering weight yarn, and that to me is just a very open gauge for fingering weight. But I had a lot of people tell me that they went up to a sport weight for this and that it worked really well for them. And so my plan is to look for sport weight yarns while I'm at Flock for this top. I think that would work really well. So for some of the specs, this comes in, let's see, 1, 4, 7, also 10 patterns. No, this comes in 10 sizes, ranging from a 33.5-inch bust to a 62.5-inch bust. So, and those are the finished bust measurements. So I believe it calls for recommended positive ease of 1 to 3 inches. So you can take that into account. I would probably be knitting the size 2 or the size 3. I'd probably be knitting the size 2 and making a couple of adjustments for size, because that's pretty close to no ease on me. But that would mean that I would need 840 yards of yarn. And so I would probably go up a little bit on that just to make sure I had some wiggle room. But for fingering weight, that's really only putting me at about It depends. It's 2 or 3 skeins of yarn depending on the yardage in the particular yarn. Oh, we're doing sport weight. Right, that's the whole point of this, is that I'm looking for sport weight. So I'm probably looking at 3 skeins of yarn, but still not too bad. So I'm really excited for the Poet. I have no idea what color I want to do it in. But that's why we go, to the festival to look around and see what we think would fit. And this is another one. I'm looking pretty hard for yarn for this one. I'm really excited about this pattern, and I really just want to find the perfect fit for it because I think I would love this top so much. And I've wanted to knit it for a long time. Those are the 2, before I move on, that I'm really specific about the pattern. I really think I want to knit them. I'm really looking for them. The next ones are ones that if I see something that suits it, I'll consider it. These are kind of bonus patterns. But the sock yarn, the Camelia Cardigan, and the Poet, I really would like to keep my eye out and look for. These next ones would just be fun to keep an eye out because I think they would suit the types of yarn that are going to be at Flock very nicely. So those are, the first one of those is the Croisiere. I think it's French and I don't speak French, so I apologize if I butchered that. But by Tricot Design MCL. I've knit one other pattern by this designer before. It was my Arthur cardigan, and I absolutely loved it. It was a very well written pattern, and the finished product was stunning. So I very much trust that this would be a very beautiful and well written pattern. But I just love the look of this sweater. It's, I believe, a saddle shoulder construction. Oh, let's see. So knitted seamlessly from the top down with contiguous set-in sleeves. So not saddle shoulder, set-in sleeves. And it just looks so nicely tailored and well fit and just really, really classic. And it comes with these nice thin stripes, which I would absolutely keep that design. I think it's really pretty. And this is knit in a DK weight yarn. So I could look for DK weight yarns, but I also think this type of pattern would look stunning in a fingering and a mohair. And so I wouldn't necessarily be looking for both of those there, but maybe I would be looking for some minis that are really pretty to do the stripes, like some special stripes. Or I'd be looking for a fingering weight yarn and find the mohair later, or vice versa. Maybe I find the mohair here and I do the fingering weight later. I don't know. It's just something I wanted to keep an eye out for, but it would just be such a classic, timeless sweater that I could see it being worth using some slightly special yarn on it because I think it would just be in my wardrobe forever. This comes in sizes extra small all the way up to 5XL, which correlates to bust measurements of 33¼ inches all the way up to 63½. And it recommends 0 to 3 inches of positive ease. It's just stunning. I'm blown away by this one. So I would probably just, since I'm figuring this out for all of them, I would probably knit the size 2. And that would put me at needing, let's see, about 600 meters. I'm always bad at translating between meters and yards, but about 600 meters of the main color and about 250 meters of the contrasting color. So that's what that's looking like. I would, I think this pattern is stunning. I think it would really showcase any yarn you got very nicely. The next one is similarly a very simple pattern that I think looks just, I don't know, like the simpleness of it would really elevate whatever yarn you use. And that is the Oslo sweater by Petite Knit. I've had this one in my favorites ever since I knit my first sweater. I actually considered this one for my first sweater because I just think it's stunning. I really love the collar on it. I like the way it fits. So this is a drop shoulder construction. And it's technically supposed to be knit with 2 strands of mohair held together, but I've seen a lot of pattern projects on it knit it with a fingering and a mohair, and I think it looks really nice, and that's probably what I would plan to do. I think a full mohair sweater is just a very specific look. Like, I love it on the Camelia cardigan, but for this sweater, I think it would look nice with a little bit more structure that the fingering wool would give it. But I just love this. I think it's, again, so simple, and I think it would just, I can picture this in, like, if I found, like, the perfect, like, cream color. Like, I'm really bad at picking neutrals for myself, and knowing if they're going to wash me out or, you know, match my skin tone too much. But if I could find like the perfect, just subtle cream color that suits my skin tone and knit it in this, I just feel like it would look so elegant and so stunning. This comes in sizes extra small to 3XL, which correlates to bust measurements of 41¼ inches up to 59 inches. However, it is intended to have quite a bit of positive ease, 8 to 10 inches, which puts this as not being particularly size inclusive, which is a problem that Petite Knit has been working on over time. She's been re-releasing some patterns to be more size inclusive, and a lot of her newer ones are a lot more size inclusive. Unfortunately, this one isn't quite there yet, but it is just really, really pretty. This would need, let's see, I would probably knit the size 1 or the size 2. I'm not totally sure. I'd have to think about it. But that would put me at, oh, it's hard to say. So she just has it in the grams of yarn that you would need based off of the yarns that she used. And so I'd have to do a bit of math to figure out the actual yardages I need. But I'm sure it's similar to most sweaters that I make, so I would probably just buy a standard sweater quantity for myself. But I love this pattern. I think it would be fantastic. The next one I was contemplating is the Lento by Jonna Helin. This is an interesting sweater because it is just a very simple raglan sweater, and it's knit with a merino and a mohair, but it's knit on size US 10 needles, and so it has this incredibly open gauge. And I've just heard from a lot of people who've knit it that it has this amazing drape, that it's fun to knit, that it just feels really, really good on, and that it's just really flattering. And it does look really flattering in all the pictures. It looks really nice. But the bonus is that because it's on a US 10, and it's got this big open gauge, it's going to be very generous with its yarn usage. And so I have a feeling I'd be able to, if I were to just buy the fingering or the mohair or whatever for this, I would be able to get away with buying a little less for a full-size sweater and would be able to make really good use out of it. So this comes in 9 sizes, which correlates to finished bust measurement of 38½ inches all the way up to 67¼ inches. Let's see, it does recommend about 5 inches of positive ease. And it requires, let's see, what size would I be making? I would probably make the size 2, which would put me at needing, let's see, about 800 yards of a fingering weight yarn and about 830 yards of a mohair. So pretty reasonable. I think this would be a really great option. If I saw something that caught my eye, I would definitely go for it. And then the last one is one that I'm really not looking for yarn for this one, but I'm obsessed with this pattern, and I just think this pattern is special enough to warrant a special yarn. But I also think it would look beautiful in literally anything you knit it in. But the reason I'm not really considering this is because it is a DK weight pattern, and I would want to knit it with DK weight yarn. I wouldn't necessarily want to do a fingering and a mohair. But that is the Citrine jumper by Vert Knit. This is a stunning sweater. It's got this beautiful, she calls it a faux ribbing, but I believe it's a slip stitch ribbing, kind of like what you do on socks, if I'm not mistaken. I could be totally off base on that though, so I haven't looked at the pattern. And then it has these really pretty cables on the mock. It has a mock neck collar, it has cables running up them, and then it has cables running down the raglan shaping. It's just so pretty. I love it. And I just, like I said, I could just see this being a sweater that I just, like, for some reason the design feels like it deserves fancy yarn. But again, I'm also probably not looking for this one because for all of the reasons I've been explaining. But this is, let's see, what are the specs on it? It is a raglan sweater, so it uses raglan shaping. It comes in 16 sizes, which correlate to bust measurements all the way from 30 inches up to 62 inches. And the sizing is every 2 inches. So I like that. I like that you're going to have a lot of ways to really customize the fit of this sweater because the sizes are very closely spaced. So a lot of the times for me, I end up in the middle of 2 really far apart sizes. And it's sort of a problem for me with a lot of knitting patterns that I'm having to learn how to adapt and adjust for myself. But it's nice when you don't have to. This is, she lists it as intermediate to advanced difficulty, just because there are different stitch patterns that you're working simultaneously. But I kind of love that. I like being a little challenged by my knitting and having to be engaged in it. And then again, she doesn't list the actual yardage individually. Let's see if it comes up at the top. So it lists the yardage at about 1,094 up to 2,089 yards, you know, across all of the different sizes, but she doesn't list the sizes broken down on this page. So I can't say exactly how much I'd have to buy, but again, stunning sweater. I'm not really looking for this one, but this one's like my, like I'm dreaming about it sweater. This is my, if I could have unlimited yarn, this sweater would also be on the list, but I am realistically not planning to buy yarn for this sweater, but it deserved a mention. But yeah, there you have it. Those are all of the patterns that I will be having in the back of my head while I am at Flock. I'm also looking to buy some buttons from Denim and Rain, most likely, because she poured some really, really beautiful ones. And yeah, other than that, I'm just looking to have a good time, hang out with my friend, and just meet some fiber people and have a great time. If you're going to Flock, tell me down below what patterns you're planning on making and how you approach going to fiber festivals, because this is all completely new to me. I mean, I don't know if any of this planning's even going to work when I'm there. I have no idea how this is gonna go. So, seriously, so excited. And if you are not lucky enough to go to Flock this year, just let me know what you're planning on knitting coming up soon. Like, do you have any patterns in mind that feel a little extra special for you? And like I said, all of these patterns are special enough that they would look stunning in anything you want to knit them in. I don't need to use the fancy yarn, but if I'm gonna use the fancy yarn, I just want to make sure it's shown off, you know? So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. Hopefully this was fun. Next time you see me, I will be fresh back from Flock and probably going through a bit of a yarn haul. So yeah, I will see you guys next time. I hope you have a great evening. I'm hoping you're getting some knitting in, and I will see you next time. Bye.